Oh, this one won't get out of your mind if it's in there. Hot diggity dog. Okay. The beauty of having Alexa as your assistant is she can start and end music. So welcome everyone to the Celebrating Families webinar. It's the third in our series of working real hard to provide all of you throughout the country resources to be able to take our program, which has historically had lots of people all together, and be able to offer it virtually online over the past year as we've really had to adjust the way that we serve folks throughout the pandemic. So just really want to welcome you all for being here, and thank you for your continued commitment to children and families. You being here lets us know that you're in the field or close to it or curious about it, and really your commitment to getting this program to families, even in times like now that are challenging. So today, this is what we're going to do over the next 90 minutes together. Welcome. So I hope you're all feeling welcomed. Thanks for those of you that checked in the chat. It is really wonderful to have you all here and to be with you. Just as we have for the basic 4 to 7-year-old program, we've created a guide, a virtual implementation guide for the 0 to 3 program that will be made available via our website immediately following the webinar, and we'll send it to you via email as well, because it may take us a minute to get it uploaded to the website, but that will be coming as a resource to you. We'll be going through elements of it today, but it's really meant, as our other guides are, to be used hand in hand with the curriculum to help you think through how you might be able to implement via Zoom or any other online platform during this time. We're also just going to spend a little time with the 0 to 3 distinctives. What makes our 0 to 3 program different? I'll find out in a minute how many of you have been trained in our 0 to 3 program. We're going to have a little poll, but just really why 0 to 3, and even talk a little bit about how the past year, the pandemic and social unrest and racial injustice, all the traumas and crises that we've been going through as a global society have had a particular impact on 0 to 3-year-olds. Then we'll be walking through the essential skills and Dear Caregiver pages. Many of you may be familiar with these resources, some of you may not, but how they're geared for the 0 to 3 program and how utilizing them will help you in the implementation, of course, in person, but particularly virtually. And we have 3 fabulous ladies from Meta House with us today who will be doing some demonstrations of our essential skills, and then we'll be doing some Q&A panel discussion with me and Q&A at the end, because they've been running the 0 to 3 program actually for 12 years and have run 2 cycles of it virtually. And so they're here to share their experience with all of us and how they've been able to do that successfully with mamas and babies that they support. So the muting is really just for our panelists because most of you are attending via webinar, but please use the raise hand button or the chat box if you have questions. Know that we will get to as many questions as we can during our time together today, but also we'll get back to you afterwards if we didn't have a chance, where we can connect with you if we didn't have a chance to cover it in the webinar. So please bring us your questions and comments and ideas. We'd be happy to hear them. That's why we're here to network. So let's start with centering, as we do in all of our Celebrating Families programming and groups. And David just checked in with busy, and I know so many of us are feeling that these days with all that we're balancing. So wherever you are, if you could just get comfortable in your chair, if you're on the floor or on bed, grounding your feet into the floor, really feeling the sensation of your heels the balls of your feet and your toes against maybe a sock or your shoe or the floor. The connection to the earth. Notice under your hips and your lower back, the feeling, the groundedness, the solid feeling of sitting on whatever it is that's holding you. Coming up and lengthening your spine, kind of focusing on sitting up straight so that your air and oxygen and energy can flow through. It's kind of like a straw, bending straw, not such a flow. Straight straw, much better. Lower your shoulders. Try to pull them as far away from your ears as you can while relaxing your hands. And imagine a string coming out of your head, kind of pulling up your neck. Don't strain too much, but just enough to feel a bit of a stretch and just your neck elongated. You may want to tilt your chin up a little bit if you're comfortable. Eyes can be closed. Notice your jaw. We often are holding a lot of tension there. Relax your jaw. Notice your forehead and your eyebrows. I bet they might have been squished up, squished. Relax them. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs and your belly with air as much as you can get in. Hold it there for a minute and then release slowly and fully out of your mouth until every little last bit has been exhaled. Another deep breath in. Hold. Release. And just paying attention to those relaxed shoulders, the elongated neck. Okay, wiggle your fingers. Move around your body. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. I know how much that helps me. I hope that was nice for you as well. And I just love the picture of this little baby in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I happen to be in California, so that's fun. So I'm going to pop up a poll right now. And it's going to ask you two questions. One is your current agent currently trained in the 0 to 3 program? So have you had training? And the second question is your organization currently implementing or planning to implement the 0 to 3 program online? Are you implementing now and you're here to learn more? You're here to learn how to implement because you want to, but you're not sure. And then, or are you just waiting till you can offer it in person, but you're here to learn? And it is looking like most people have been trained, but not everybody. And a bunch of you are here to learn how to implement. That's why we did it. But a good number of you are implementing now. Give it another about 10 seconds. About 75% of you have put in a vote. Okay, so let me share the results so we can see who we've got. And so it's kind of a little more than half of you have been trained, but a bunch of you haven't. So that's great because maybe after today, you'll be interested in being trained in our 0 to 3 program. It's fantastic. And there are some of you that are implementing now, but the majority of you are here to learn how to implement. So at the end of the webinar, a survey will automatically pop up in your browser when it ends. And that also just has a couple of questions that are going to ask about follow-up and whether you got what you needed today for that. So So let us know. Okay. So I wanted to start with just thinking of our 0 to 3-year-olds and their caregivers within the context of their family, and thinking about what we're all kind of been carrying as a burden, whether in our professional role or our caregiving or parenting role, the impact of this last year on young children. So, when shelter in place hit, and we're just about 10 days, 11 days away from the 1-year anniversary of that happening, there was a drastic change in the routines of families. And I know, for one, as a mom, I thought we were going to be doing it for like 2 weeks. And suddenly all these things were coming online and Facebook about what your daily schedule should be. And, you just get some board games and puzzles and we're all going to get through this. But really what happened was a big change in going to work, in going to childcare, in seeing family members, in Sunday dinners with grandma, lots of change in family routines. And for our little ones, that might have met, and all of us, but from their perspective, this sudden loss of relationship. I'm no longer seeing my preschool teacher every day, or I'm no longer seeing my daycare provider every day. I'm no longer seeing grandma. And so this sudden loss for them, that can be difficult for them to wrap their brains around. And then maybe mama and dada or caregiver just aren't as available to me. I know for me, my 4-year-old is in daycare, but when she wasn't, when there was the time where she wasn't, it was really hard. She was sick and tired of mom looking at the computer all day. And some of you that have been in meetings with me know during that time, by 2 or 3 o'clock, she was in the meeting, hopefully clothed and not running around. But, certainly there's just a different demand. Many of us are working more. The work-life balance is harder to juggle. Maybe we're caring for elderly caregivers. Maybe some of us were sick and in the hospital, or have lost loved ones to COVID. And so those things all happening. Also, so many doctors and clinics were not providing routine visits because of the pandemic. And so a lot of our little ones may have missed routine well-check visits where parents are able to kind of get that check-in with their pediatrician about how are they doing, and getting answers to questions around their development and behavior. And so just that kind of missing link. And then all of us, I know, have been feeling, but especially our little ones, about like their birthdays or family rituals or routines or the holidays that just we haven't been able to celebrate in the same way that we typically would. Loss of security and safety. Certainly any people getting sick within the family, those that might have been impacted by racial injustice or violence. Certainly we know the increase in substance use and in violence within homes, job loss. Suddenly no one's working, or there's been a significant decrease in income. And then we also know that because there are just fewer eyes on our little ones and our families, and that we are kind of stuck, although we're getting there. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but stuck in our homes, that there are underreports of child abuse and neglect and domestic violence. And so just thinking about all of those impacts, and I'm sure a lot of why you're here and you're wanting information about how to get the program to these little ones is how do we engage them, this population particularly, on a computer, so that we do see them, so that we are continuing to scaffold and support that parent-child relationship, especially because they kind of need us now more than ever. So our 0 to 3 program, sounds like more than half of you have been trained, but really the focus of all group leaders, whether you're doing the parent group or the littles group, or you're the program coordinator, the focus for everyone is the parent-child relationship. This program was written specifically to be able to intervene in early recovery for parents to be able to build healthy attachment with their children, healthy attunement, with their children to support their young ones in optimum development, because we know when we put all those protective factors into place, we significantly reduce their likelihood of suffering from the disease of addiction, amongst other emotional and physical health disparities. It is deeply grounded in the CF guiding principle that all parents love their children. And that all parents love their children, we might not always be able to see it in the ways that we would want to see it, but that deep down there, the love is there. In fact, I was meeting with some of our residential partners this week, and it's like, that's often why mamas are going into residential treatment. It's for their children. And so that's at the heart of each session of the 0 to 3 program. And then the focus, we always talk in Celebrating Families about how we balance skill building and also fact building, knowledge building around facts. And so it's really focused on building essential skills for parents to be able to successfully nurture their parent-child relationship towards healthy development for their child. And why? Well, what we know is that positive parenting, the nurturing parenting, healthy attachment, all of these protective factors have such evidence to override the genetic disposition for the disease of addiction and to increase positive outcomes for young children. And so these are the folks that we serve, and these are the next sort of generation, if you will, that we want to support. Jerry Moe has said that we know where our next generation of alcoholics and addicts are, because we know it's a family disease. And why wait until a kiddo is in school or in our juvenile justice system? Now, this 0 to 3 time is really the time that gives us the opportunity to try to prevent adversities as they get older. Some of the things that are distinct in the 0 to 3 program, and we'll continue to, we'll look more deeper into this, are the Dear Caregiver handouts. So many of you in our 4 to 7 program may be used to using, or 4 to 18 program, the Dear Caregiver pages that at the end of each week you can give to parents so they know what happened in the children's group, or you can give to foster parents so they know what was happening in group. These are specifically giving activities to parents to be able to do in between. So it becomes that family time, that connecting with my family in between sessions, and is really more targeted on actual activities that they've done in group together during the family time, and also those essential skills for caregivers. There's tons in the 0 to 3 around communication and understanding how to communicate with babies and young children, how taking turns. We teach basic baby signs. We do work around understanding the cues of your baby or young child who may not have words yet to tell you how they're feeling, how to talk through your day with children. And we'll look through some of those essential skills together today. And then the positive parenting methods of affirming our children, which these things may seem very elementary to so many of us, but when you didn't experience this yourself, it can be really difficult to understand how to do it for your child, especially if I can't see the good in myself. So we've got another hot off the press new release. The next, again, that you'll be getting after today's webinar is our guide for recommendations providing online groups for parents ages 0 to 3 years. Again, a lot of thought went into thinking through how to do this successfully, and with consult from MetaHouse and others who have been doing it, who kind of were able to jump in during this time of the pandemic and offer the groups online. We're also happy to provide support to continue to brainstorm, because each organization and community is certainly different and have different resources. But what you'll essentially find in this guide are developmental considerations, right? This idea about screens. We spend so much time talking about no screens for kids under 2, and yet now we want to provide services via screen, and they're seeing their grandparents via screen. And so how to engage young children and parents and young children via Zoom. And so much of it's the same of what we already do. It's singing, it's being animated, it's having our puppets, it's reading our books and stories, but it's certainly different. then having them on their little mats in a circle in our agencies. Recommended session agendas, which we'll be reviewing together today, the matrix of recommended activities, and then we'll go through an example of the Dear Caregiver pages and the kinds of things that parents will be going to be doing in between sessions. Just going to take a little peek. I don't think I have anything in the chat, but just gonna. So here's an overview of timing if you were to do a 90-minute group. And we're going to talk about different scenarios. And I'm sure there's many more scenarios that, that you have. But this is assuming that we're doing the full program. And so the full program begins with 30 minutes of family time. That family time is with caregiver or caregivers and baby. So they're together, we gather by reading a story, we do a centering, there's a short topic teaching, whatever the topic might be for that month, for that week. For week one, it's following your children's lead and affirming your children. So we would do a little talk about that. And then there would be a parent-child activity that would help to demonstrate that. And then in session one, for instance, we sing Itsy Bitsy Spider. We then end with a song and a transition ritual, just as we would in person. We're in really doing it to fidelity, where we are then having time with the parent portion. We would break for 10 minutes. You'll hear from MetaHouse, for instance, they are able, because their women are in residence, to then send those children go off to childcare. Maybe there's another adult in the home, or grandma can come, or whoever's kind of safe within the safe bubble to come and take the child, or it's nap time, and that the child is then cared for while the parent is able to engage in 60 minutes of parent group. Again, this is our typical 60-minute parent group where we do our opening, again, centering group agreements, our healthy living circle, focus question, their session activities, and then our closing. In the closing, we are not only going back to the focus question and doing the serenity saying and kind of closing out, but we're also reviewing the Dear Caregiver handout, and we'll again look at that together to say, here's what we'd like for you to be doing with your baby or young child throughout the week. Now, what we know is that not everybody may have access to childcare. They may be home with their kiddos with nobody that could take them while they could be in that 1-hour group. In that case, we'd recommend a bit of a longer family time where it's gathering with story. We center, again, we do the short topic teaching, the parent-child activity, a song, and a transition ritual. We would also, though, do the Dear Caregiver pages. This would not be the full Celebrating Families program. It would be focused more on parent-child, but something's better than nothing during this time. So thinking about how you might be able to do this, or maybe you do this one day, and then there's another day during the week where you're able to kind of run the parent group. But we do know there are the parent group that you could be doing with the kiddos in the room, but there are certainly a lot that you can't, like the role plays or some of those deeper conversations will be really difficult to do with a 2-year-old in the room with mom. So getting creative is certainly a piece of it, but this is an option if there wasn't childcare available. And then in your guide is the matrix of suggested activities. So you'll see here for each week, you have this for each week, that there's the key objective for each session. This is for session 1. It'll look familiar to you. And if you're familiar with our basic curriculum, it's the themes are similar, right? Because it's all celebrating families. So it's, again, session 1, establishing trust in the group. We're doing some simple activities. We're introducing parents to the essential skills. It points out what the essential skills are that you're looking for. And that's another guide that's available to you on our website. The Essential Skills for Parenting is its own booklet. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. And then supporting healthy attachment. This shows you what the full, then it will show you the full agenda for the 0 to 3 time. And then also what what the parents will be doing during the week. When you see all of these activities, again, that all corresponds with the full 0 to 3 curriculum. Then during the parent caregiver group, as I was saying, you're going to see that you're going to prepare the parents to lead the at-home activities for the week. So for session 1, it's talking with them about following the children's lead and of the daily affirmations. So it's having a dialogue around what are some ways that you can follow your child's lead this week? What are some affirmations that you might give your child throughout the day and throughout the week? So kind of practicing that together. And then the handouts that parents are getting for this portion are in the curriculum, in the 0 to 3 curriculum. So there's an article on one of the Dear Caregiver pages that's called Is Anything Wrong? I'll show you a clip of that in a minute. There's tips for giving daily affirmations, and then they learn Itsy Bitsy Spider in group, and then they're encouraged to sing Itsy Bitsy Spider throughout the week as much as they can. And that it goes all throughout week to week with 0 to 3. So they might be singing a song. They might be using cotton balls and playing around with that. They might be making puppets. Whatever they're doing, whatever we're asking them to do during the week, they've practiced in group. And they've gotten the tools to be able to have. And then they come back the next week and let us know how it went. Here are just some snippets from what I was just talking about. So the For Your Information piece is on the Dear Caregiver pages that typically it's the half of the page that typically childcare would be filling out saying, here's the snack your child had and whatnot. So this one just is some typical anxieties and questions that come up for parents around babies crying or doing potty training, saying no, and just kind of normalizing some of that. And then here on the other side, you'll see directly from the Dear Caregiver in between sessions page, the tips on how to give the daily affirmations. And then we provide for them the song, for the lyrics to Itsy Bitsy Spider. Again, that becomes their homework. When we think, and this is, we did some of this in our last webinar when we talked about young children. We've always seen parents as the experts of their child, and always about how we as guides on the side are lifting parents to be able to co-create a positive recovery journey with their children. Online facilitation really is giving us the opportunity and challenge to be like supercharged guides on the side, right? So in training, when we talk about guide on the side in person, it's about not taking over, that rather than stepping in and swooping up that crying baby because our hearts go out to that baby and that mama, we come alongside and instead guide her, check in with her, get her permission about what she needs. Well, now we're not in the room. We're not able to set the environment. We've got our Brady Bunch squares and we're managing however many parents we have, we're managing that many environments, right? If they're in residential, maybe it's multiple houses. And so we're kind of having to be super guides on the side because it's how do we talk through a screen in a supportive way to encourage parents? Well, part of it is that we really want to build their essential skills. The essential information and parenting skills guide was initially written because for so many of you, especially in residential, but others who would have volunteers come and help with the meals or help with childcare as part of celebrating families, they didn't get trained in the model. And so we were wanting to give you a way to make sure that everyone within your organization or everyone that's touching the lives of these families has an opportunity to know the language of the essential skills we teach and also be able to practice them. So the guide was initially set up so that as for each essential skill, there's like a lesson that you could do in a team meeting or as part of a training to be able to build those skills. Gabriella, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go ahead. It looked like you put your hand up. Okay, maybe not. If anyone has any other questions, please pop them in the chat box. So what are the essential skills when we talk about essential skills? So baby cues, baby signs, centering and stress reduction, continuity and repetition. You all know in Celebrating Families, what we do, the topic changes each week, but how we do it and the order in which we do it and what we call things does not change. We want to make sure that kids and families and parents and caregivers know what to expect coming out of sort of the chaos and uncertainty of living with active addiction. Following the children's lead, providing simple choices, parting and returning affirmations. Again, you know that when we are in group and in training, we talk about when we go from dinner into our groups, or when we go from our groups back to connecting with my family, that we really want to nurture those parting, returning times that can be difficult for young children. Reading to children, sportscasting or narrating, and turn taking. And then self-care. Self-care, big in the middle, not the last thing, really the first thing. All these things are important for us to be doing in our interactions with young children. And here in our 0 to 3 program, how do we build these skills in parents? So self-care, we're not going to go through all of them, but we are going to highlight some of them. Talking to parents and ourselves about how can we most effectively meet our own needs, especially now when some of us are kind of with all the people in our house all the time. They're just always around, right? There's not as much opportunity to get out and have that me time. So can I recognize and acknowledge my own needs? How am I managing that? How am I making time for myself? Who do I have that I can turn to for support, even if it looks different than it used to? Who can I check in with to make sure that I'm taking that walk or doing that meditation, or journaling, or whatever it is that I'm setting for myself? How do I have someone I trust and that cares for me, that can be someone I check in with about that? Centering and stress reduction. We practice it in each session of Celebrating Families, but wanting to make sure that we are able to be centered. Parents, we're going to miss the cue. We as providers, we're going to miss the cues of our clients if we're not grounded and centered. And so the idea that we need to be grounded, centered, to be able to, and regulated, and able to, in order to be able to co-regulate with those that we're supporting. Following the child's lead. Watch a little video on this one, which is another great thing.
Welcome to Helping Your Child Learn to Communicate. I'm Heather Hayward, a speech-language pathologist. In this video, we're going to learn about the strategy of following your child's lead. When you follow your child's lead, it means that you watch to find out what your child is showing interest in. Then you ask a question, make a comment, provide help, or just join them in that activity. Here's an example of following the child's lead. At first, I wait and watch as he looks around the room. Then I see him walk over to the truck and point at it. Look at that truck, let's play. I walk over to the truck with him. When you follow your child's lead, make sure to see what your child tries to do on their own. In my scenario, the child picked the truck, but maybe he doesn't want to just drive the truck. Maybe he'll decide he wants to use the truck to push the ball, or maybe knock the blocks over, or perhaps he'll even pretend the truck is an airplane and fly it around. It's important to let your child explore and experiment with materials in their own way. This helps them become more confident and capable in play. Another thing to remember is to stay focused on what your child is interested in. Try to avoid drawing your child's attention to something different. Direct your attention to what captures their attention. Try to stay on the same topic as your child. Children learn best when they're engaged in an activity that they find motivating. By following your child's lead, you set the stage for learning language by making sure that your child is paying attention and interested in what they're doing. You don't have to follow your child's lead all the time. but it's important to notice what your child pays attention to and finds interesting throughout their day. I hope this video helped you understand the strategy of following your child's lead. You can use this strategy throughout your day to help your child learn to communicate.
So an important piece, especially with the families we serve, I think you probably have the same experience I do, that when a parent is in early recovery with lots of shame and guilt, and perhaps even have been, their children been removed from them, or other things that may have happened, there tends to be this desire to overdo it, to prove themselves to others, to shower with gifts, to McDonald's yes every day, to kind of all or nothing approach. And what that can be super overwhelming to kids, right? And so kind of reminding them that, number one, that time with you on the phone, time with you, if you're able to be together, time with you, attention from you is what children need. And for babies, they need your face and the human face more than any toy that makes sounds or jumps up and down or blinks. How to teach them how to just kind of narrate what they're seeing, what they want to play with, waiting to see what their child wants to do, rather than having sort of the pressure on them to feel like they have to have all the things all the time. Providing simple choices. This kind of goes hand in hand with following the children's lead. Like, they don't need all the things, right? So offering multiple toys and letting the toddler choose one. Making sure they're manageable, so we're not putting out 25 toys, maybe 2 or 3, and seeing what they choose, letting them choose. Doable, offering choices that you're actually prepared to do, right? Don't say you're going to go to grandma's house if that's not actually possible. And then, of course, safety. The other piece of this, and also about following the child's lead, when we saw in the video the little boy having the dump truck be, or was it a bulldozer, be an airplane, there can also be this need for perfectionism, right? There's this concern that they screwed up their child. There's this concern, is their child okay? And so sometimes there can be what we might see as an overreaction if their child isn't getting it right. If their child is coloring the tree blue, is there something wrong with my child? Is that showing that I did something wrong? So just this understanding and conversation around how it's developmentally appropriate that kids are going to be creative, that they're going to want to do their own thing, and just to remain curious with them rather than controlling in their play. So providing simple choices, I'm going to invite one of our panelists forward. And so whoever is providing simple choices, if you could unmute yourself.
That's me.
Hello. Is it Deborah?
No, it's Wylisa.
Wylisa, okay. Because I can't see you, but I want to. Okay, so Wylisa. I'm looking for you on here so that I think I can.
No.
You're on the panelist bar. No wonder why. Okay. Okay, I'm going to spotlight you, and you go ahead. Share with us.
Yeah, so with our women, when we are doing this skill, what we usually do is there's a little bit of preparation that goes into it. So we're providing them with supplies every week. And so usually there'll be about 2 or 3 toys within their bags of supplies. So for example, we might give them a ball, and we also might give them a set of blocks. And so when we're teaching this to them, we'll say, okay, so in your bags, you have a set of blocks and you also have a ball. And so how about you offer both of those to your toddler and see which one they choose, right? And so then we can either give them examples of sentences to say, like, hey, little Jimmy, do you want to play with these blocks or do you want to play with a ball? And we'll usually do a lot of praise with this as well. And so we're modeling some of these other skills too, right? So we're giving the women affirmations while they're doing it, like, hey, Sarah, I see that you're doing a really good job offering choices to little Jimmy, right? Um, yeah, so that makes it a little easier for us when we're able to kind of provide them with those supplies beforehand, and then seeing them all at once and calling out and giving them affirmations when they're doing a good job, right? And we're doing all of these things. So we're making sure that they're obviously the larger blocks and not the little ones that they can choke on. And the same with the balls, right? Making sure that they're big enough and age appropriate for our kids. And then we'll even give them some suggestions on things to do. We might bring in some, like you were saying before, we might bring in some of those skills from following their lead. If they want to pretend that the block is a car, let them pretend that the block is a car when they choose to play with that item, right? So really just trying to bring in a lot of these skills when we're doing that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. And you bring up a really good point, which is the preparation that you spoke about, and also the supplies. So I'm sure that's part of what a lot of you are thinking about when you're thinking, how on earth do we do this virtually? And in the same way that we don't need to give our little ones all the things, we don't need to give our families all the things, but we do need to give them just enough. And so it may be that you're checking in during the intake process to say, do you have a ball in large blocks at home? And if they say yes, awesome, they're good to go. And if they say no, then perhaps that's something you might be able to provide for them. What we've been finding in sites throughout the country is that because if you already have a budget for celebrating families as part of your program budget, because you're having to spend less on group facilitators, you're not having to worry about transportation or dinner, that maybe you're able to redistribute those budget dollars to some supplies for families or gift cards for meals or some kind of, supplies for them to be able to do it at home. Kissing Hand or other books for each family. So thank you for that. I love that. Just having those things available for them and then cheering them on. Parting and returning affirmations, just felt the need to point this out because we always do that. We're stopping that don't trust rule, right? And this idea that parents, caregivers, people come back. People that care about us come back. And so whether it's that you're doing the family time and then you're taking that break and you're going to be doing the parent group, or whether it's you as group leaders letting them know that you'll see them next week, or that you're starting to be on the screen and then they're just going to be getting off the screen with you, that there is some sort of ritual, the same thing every week that you do to help them prepare to come together and to then part ways from you and or their parents. And then just that reminder of just developmentally. So it's not only building up their trust that their parents will come back, but also just helping parents to understand the development of children, that between the ages of 7 and 10 months old, for typically developing kids, that stranger anxiety is going to set in. And so if that's the time and grandma's or someone is coming in and taking baby or toddler during that 1 hour, that there may be some crying or behavior during this time that they weren't seeing before. Before they could leave and baby was fine. And now babies freaking out a little bit when they leave, and that's developmentally appropriate. And that the way we help our children move through stranger anxiety is by showing them what safe relationships are, and that just, that grownups come back, that people that care about them come back. So kind of plugged that in because as much as we can not only teach skills, but also provide information and knowledge around typical development. Sportscasting, narrating. This is magic and easy because it's just about talking about what we're seeing. Mama or dada or grandma or any of us talking about what we're seeing or what we're doing throughout the day. This builds language development, and you don't need any kind of gadget to do it. You just need language. And so I'm going to welcome, this might be Deborah. Deborah, will you be doing this one?
Yep, I'm doing
All right.
sportscasting.
All right.
All right.
Welcome to the Sportscast.
Thank you. So I just want to make a note that in sportscasting or during family time, play is very serious work for our children. And Lisa and I work together, and we facilitate the 0 to 3 group along with another colleague. And during playtime, we don't force um, our parents during playtime. We encourage them, and we continuously encourage them, and we provide them lots of affirmations. However, during sportscasting, just as you described, when we're doing sportscasting, we're just pretty much stating just the facts. We have parents just tell us what you see, kind of like at a Packer game when you hear a sports announcer announcing the ball is going 20 yards down the line. We encourage our parents to do the same thing. We show a lot of emotions, and we demonstrate a lot of emotions when we're teaching this to our parents and our caregivers, just to say what they see going on, as well as to say what they're doing as well. So an example of that would be, and I'll use the stacking of the blocks. Is, I see Johnny stacking the blocks and he seems really happy. Um, and so then what that does is lets the child know that mom, I'm here, or caregiver lets the child know that I'm here, and I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I care about what you're doing and how you're doing it. We don't correct play, we just keep going with it. And then in infants, moms talk about, oh, you want a bottle? How about mom get you a rattle so we can play with it together? Mom sportscast what she's doing. And what that does, it helps promote language development for infants. And so this is encouraged all throughout the celebrating family sessions. We encourage this through every group. Um, whether it's the topic or not, we encourage sportscasting. And then oftentimes halfway through the group's session 6 or 7, we find parents are doing sportscasting on their own, which is really great. And so oftentimes we ask parents to put an emotion or a feeling in when they're sportscasting, kind of help children identify their feelings as they start to grow.
Thank you, Deborah. I love that. And it's so cool to hear. Exactly right. That the more that we're encouraging it and then suddenly we hear parents doing it.
Yeah.
So great. And it can feel silly at first, right? Like when it's talking to your baby, okay, it's time to wake up now. Now we're going downstairs. Like, am I talking to myself? But once you can get comfortable with it, it so benefits our little ones. So thanks so much for that beautiful description and modeling of that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other thing that can be kind of magical about sportscasting is when we feel stuck. When we feel stuck as providers, that we're just something's happening in front of us. Maybe it's just nothing bad's happening, no tantrums, but that parent is just not really engaging with us, or maybe there is something happening. If you just look at this picture of this dad and baby that's on this slide, if I were wanting to engage with them and really kind of help to point out the strengths of their relationship, but wasn't quite sure what to say, I could just say, oh my gosh, look how he is touching your chin. And look at how he's looking at you. His face looks so relaxed when you look at him. He seems to be trying to open his mouth the same way you are. As Deborah said, like when you're watching a Packers game, you can probably tell where those ladies are. It's just describing what I see. I'm not assuming what feeling that baby's having, but every time that dad would turn to me and go, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice how relaxed he was when he's with me. Or he'll say, yeah, we have a really great relationship or something like that. And it's just, it can just be a really special way to be able to connect. And I find it really helpful sometimes when I don't know what to say. Okay, well, look at that. I've cut off one of our participants and I don't want to do that. Okay, so get your Get your questions ready because we're going to move into some Q&A with our panelists, and certainly also want to hear from you. So I want to welcome, here they are, Deborah, Rylisa, and Eileen from Meta House in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So welcome, ladies, and thanks for being here. As I mentioned, they have been running Celebrating Families group since 2012, and they were a pilot site for our 0 to 3 program. So they have lots of experience with celebrating families, and then they jumped into virtual facilitation as soon as they didn't stop, right? They just continued the program and figured it out for it online when this all happened. So I have some questions for them and that we're going to kind of talk through, and then whether you want to plop it in the chat or you'll raise your hand, we'll open Q&A up for the to be able to ask to the 4 of us any questions that you might be having right now about implementation. So the first for the Meta House ladies is, how have you successfully engaged young children and their caregivers online? How have you been doing that?
Hi, Melissa and everyone.
Hi,
Greetings from Packerland. What we thought, and you let us know if this will work, is that all 3 of us have some responses. We all have a different perspective. I'm the site administrator, so I have some slightly different perspectives than our facilitators. If that will work for you, we can just take a minute or 2 and round robin it.
Do it.
Great. So hello, everyone. And as I said, I'm the site administrator at Meta House. And I want to emphasize, and many of you probably realize this, that the thought of focusing on the parent-child relationship and really focusing on the needs of the family is the same regardless whether we're doing in-person sessions or online sessions. So all of that relationship building is very, very important. And we have kind of a hybrid model. So we can have families and groups who are living in our residential program, living in their own apartment in our recovery housing program, or in the outpatient program and in their own home out in the community. And while we try to have everything work for everyone, we want to be flexible. So we may have a family member who has, grandma wants to join us, but she's calling from another county and may not be able to participate in the connecting with my family portion, but may be able to sign on during the education portion. So we try to be flexible to let that happen. The other thing that we developed that's different for online is we have a technology checklist that we use when we're doing enrollment. So we can inquire, do they have Wi-Fi? Do they have devices? Do they have private spaces to do things? Do they have someone who can help them with childcare? If not, how are we going to fit that in? And we do all of that in advance so we can plan to overcome those barriers. And Deborah, you want to add your points?
Thanks, Eileen, for that. That was pretty much what we do all the time. So my take on how we successfully engage our children and their caregivers virtually is we give them motivating activities. Much of what was done here today is we use YouTube videos, we do songs and dance. The facilitators, we really get involved and we show the silly side that we can that we can be. So we use video, songs, finger plays, and we just encourage families to really, and we encourage families, parents, caregivers to really engage with their children. And no one looks silly unless it's really me that looks really silly during some of these times. And the children walk right up to whatever technology device that their parent has, and they're looking and they're wondering, like, kind of, what is this? But they really get engaged in it, and they really love it.
It is amazing how you can create your own little world on the screen in ways that I never would have believed prior to us being forced to do it. Thanks for that, Deborah. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, so kind of just adding to what Deborah and Eileen were sharing, we also kind of, in order to engage the moms, the parents of these kids too, we're offering incentives for every week. So we raffle off a gift card at the end of every session. We're also, in those bags that I was talking about, we're offering snacks. So our group happens in the morning time. So we'll try to do some like breakfast related snacks, but then, there are other groups that are happening in the afternoon that might be able to do different snacks. And I think that really helps to engage the moms, make them want to participate, right? Because we can't have the little kids without their parents being there and willing to participate as well, right? And I think too, sometimes it can help the moms to want to be more engaged. And, even if they're a little hesitant at the beginning, the more that they experience it and the more that they get into the material and they get into these skills, they realize, wait, this is working. This is fun. I can do this. And so it's kind of like we kind of have to rope them in a little bit with some of that other stuff, right? But once we get them, we're using our engaging skills, we're using our fun videos and able to keep them.
Yeah. Well, and that's just like when it's in person, right? In person, we always say, do the best dinners the first 3 weeks, because what our evaluations have found is if you can get them to come for the first 3 weeks, you've got them for all 16. And so it sounds like you're doing that with incentives and toys and just being warm and welcoming and fun in what you're doing. And Eileen, you bring up such good points around the importance of that intake process. And I love that you're talking about it, even though these may be clients you're already serving in residential or others, that you're still doing an intake process for celebrating families to ask certain questions. So you're not going to ask all the questions you already have, but I love that technology checklist. If you're willing to share it, that would be awesome. Because that's such a big piece of this, right? Is that you want to make sure that you don't want to just assume what families have. You may have to have a practice session with some of them to understand Zoom, right? Because we're on Zoom all the time, but they might not be. And so how to practice that, where to put it so that the baby's not constantly grabbing it, all those kinds of things, but really great tips and ideas of how to engage. I saw a question come in from Casey, and Casey, I'd say it says, how do you help caregivers that seem to use habitual blaming and excuses? Well, what I always say you could actually fill that in with lots of different places where parents might be stuck. And if you trust the curriculum, it's going to help you move through it. The curriculum is so structured. It's not just a group where there's like just open processing and, it's very structured. There's hands-on activities. We're asking for feedback and we're meeting people where they're at. If they're blaming and making excuses and that's where they're at, then okay, the group is going to end up taking care of itself. Those other mamas and daddas and grandmas in group are going to end up calling them out on it likely. But we're just glad they're here. We're really grateful for them being here. So it's not trying to convince them to be anywhere except for where they are, and trusting the material and the curriculum to help move them through wherever they're feeling stuck, because we know the blaming and excuses are likely just coming from their own internal shame and blame that they're feeling. And we're not gonna shame them. So taking it from there. Next question, and then I see others coming in. What logistics or what special needs and considerations for 0 to 3? You've talked about the bags and the toys, but when again, when they're not with it, when they come to group, we have everything ready. When they're not with us, how have you managed and worked that out with families?
Great. So I'm going to again take the perspective of the site administrator, and it's very important that I help my team plan ahead, think about what they need, and offer them and make sure that they have the time to do what they need to do. So we continue to do our planning meetings in advance. We do those by Zoom. We need to have the time as a group to build our team, work together, problem solve. I have people who help me coordinate all the snacks and supplies and the technology, so my team doesn't have to worry about that.
Awesome.
We continue to have meetings every week as a team to problem solve and brainstorm. So that continues. And I said, needing to make sure that my team has time before and after group for pickup and drop off kind of things. I need to build that into their schedules. And we have been very creative about working with our community partners, particularly our family drug treatment court partners, and got some additional funding from them so we could purchase more devices and tablets that we are able to loan to some families. So those are all things that help us with logistics ongoing.
Could you say a little more about the pickup or drop off? Are you dropping off those bags to people?
Yes, we are. And so this particular group, the 0 to 3 group, goes every week before and after. And Lisa or Deborah may be able to talk about, how the supplies that we leave with them, but some things they return back. And so there's a sanitation process that happens with that. If a family lives outside of our immediate program area, we may be sending them several weeks worth of things.
Yeah, because the other thing I loved that you said, Eileen, was like the grandma who's not even in the county, where, when we were doing in-person groups, maybe the grandma wouldn't have been able to come, but now she's able to because she can attend online. Kind of cool.
I know, that's a real benefit that we weren't thinking about.
Yeah.
That we have folks from around the state who can participate that never could have happened before.
Yeah, super cool. Okay, ladies, your perspective on the preparation.
Yeah, so I can just add to what Eileen was saying, being a little bit more specific about our bags. And so I think, too, the good thing about being able to provide this to the women that are in our recovery housing program is that we technically don't need a ton of stuff, because we can have, maybe like 10 different books, 10 different balls, 10 different sets of blocks that we're switching out each week, so that each week, each family has a different item, right? And we're, like Eileen said, we're making sure that we're sanitizing those things. And then if we have women in the community, we might do like a drop off every 6 weeks or so, or we might, kind of like you were saying at the beginning, just have a conversation with them and say, hey, do you have this in your house? Do you have this? And if it's truly something that they don't have, we're able to use it from a supply of things that we just don't need back, right? So it's kind of just a gift to you and your family, right? That you can keep this book. That one of the things we give away to every client is the kissing handbook that's in the curriculum, right? So we order a set of those and everyone gets to keep that. So even if you're reading the same book every week, at least you have a book to read and you're able to participate with the other families.
Yeah, so good. How about you, Deborah?
I'd like to comment that Eileen and Lisa did a really great job describing the logistics of how we get all this to work. I just would like to add that the pre-planning is a huge part of it, and being able to have that time to meet with facilitators or co-facilitators, and being able to get information on parents that we're serving in our 0 to 3 group, and where they at and where they are in their treatment and in their parenting skills, kind of helps us with knowing what activities we can provide to them that's safe and comfortable for them. But again, note that the pre-planning is really important part of it.
Yeah. Which we say in all of it, but especially when they're not going to be in your space, right? When they're coming to space and you forgot the puppet, you can run in the other room. When they're not in your space and you forgot to get them a ball, now they may lose the ball, it's all those things. But yeah, that pre-planning. Thank you, ladies. And the other thing that I've been hearing from sites is that some of it, there's been this hesitation, like, oh, we're not going to be able to get them to want to come online. But let's remember that they are kind of stuck at home. So having people come for an hour, they're going to help them give ideas about how to play with their kids. Are you finding people are like, yes, please, right? I mean, they may not be in the beginning, but over time, oh my gosh, that's 1 hour of time or so that they don't have to think about what to do with their baby. And they can feel good about the fact that they were able to engage because we're isolated. And I love that you have the ability to see a lot of them before and after, just to do that check-in. That must feel so good for them. So that's awesome. A couple other questions I'm just going to pop over to for a minute. Martha, you're not the only one. So we have, whether it's shelters or residential, where there just is a lot of turnover. And so people are joining, you're not necessarily getting that cohort that just goes through for 16 weeks. And I actually just recently did a technical assistance call on this. And what that site is doing is having a one-on-one with that mom prior to them attending group to kind of bring them up to speed, getting them used to celebrate. You're not going to be able to teach 8 weeks worth of whatever, right? But just what Celebrating Families is about, what they're about to enter into, kind of what the group norms are, so that it might be a smoother transition. So that is one of the things that people have done. Also, we have a lot of folks who, I don't know if this would work in your shelter, but they're allowing, if someone leaves, like they're not in the shelter anymore and they go back to the community, or hopefully they've gotten some permanent housing, that they're still able to attend via Zoom. And so then you have some continuity, even if there's new folks. I see, again, people that are working with parents that don't have their children with them. We recommend that you're still doing the group with the parent in early recovery. So the focus is the family in early recovery, not necessarily the child with the foster parent, although they can attend too, or the kin or grandmother could too. And you'll see this in some of all the Dear Caregiver pages in 0 to 3 take this into consideration. So I can tell you what some other sites are doing. I can teach you Itsy Bitsy Spider or teach you Kissing Hand. And then in your supervised visit with your child, you read them the Kissing Hand, you sing Itsy Bitsy Spider, you come back next week and you tell us about it. Or I have one group right now that, and we always do, right? Where the moms actually don't even have visits right now with their children. And so what we've done for them is they're journaling. So after each session, they're really envisioning themselves as a parent. What do they want song time to look like to their child? Some of them are even just writing letters to their children each week about what they learned. So they're still connecting with that parent-child relationship, even if they're not able to physically or virtually be with them. So hope that's helpful to you. Yes, an hour of connection and belonging for them, right? I want to come to playgroup. Okay. Like I love these webinars. I feel connected to all of you, right? It's a change from my normal routine of meeting to meeting to meeting, right? All of us are needing that these days. So the last question for our panelists are, so it sounds like they're really engaged and you're doing an amazing job of setting up, and I can already feel your passion and I could through your emails, your passion and your energy for the program. How are you empowering and encouraging them to successfully practice those skills with family time throughout the week in between sessions?
So I'll start with that again as site administrator, but also as a child and play therapist. And a family therapist. So as a site administrator, I've first every week in our planning meetings, give the facilitators the opportunity to talk about how connecting with my families is going or how that engagement is going. And we, again, do some kind of supervisory reflection on what's working and what's not working, and encourage those facilitators to plan and meet together outside of that meeting to plan for things and to meet the families where they're at. So I appreciate so much, Melissa, you talking about, following the child's lead. We try to follow the parent's lead. We try to really know what they need, what their strengths are, what their challenges are. And we want to tailor, even if they're in a group with, with other people on the video, the feedback that Lisa and Deborah give to them is really tailoring their own personal needs. And we are focusing on them as people and as parents, in addition to focusing on the child's needs, in addition to focusing on the parent-child relationship. So it's doing all of those things, and there's some parallel process going on. If I want the parents that are working in the program to be able to focus on their child's needs, then I need my facilitators to know how to do that with the parent. And I need my facilitators to have that experience with me as their supervisor. So a lot of that going on when you were talking about the self-care, really having that reflective parallel process so that everyone is experiencing being attuned and seen as an important person.
So beautiful, Eileen. Melissa or Deborah? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, was that on me, Deborah?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So other ways that as facilitators we empower our parents or our caregivers is we provide praise and affirmation to them. That is really important. And they really enjoy receiving that praise and that affirmation, not just for our children, but for our parents too, as they start to engage in activities or part of the group, and some may be hesitant, we still provide them bits and pieces of praise to keep them and to keep empowering them and to know that if there's a behavior or there's a gap in communication or there's a decrease in the parent-child relationship, that engaging in the 0 to 3 group would only just help the family re-engage and build and to build the family back up. So empowering them is and it is a great thing. And but a lot of the women that we've served and that have been in our groups are individual women that we pretty much we know them, and so just meeting with them prior to and empowering them to like, yep, you can do this. This is going to bring so much to your family, and there's so much to gain from being part of the 0 to 3 group and engaging in family activities.
Love it.
And I can add too, I think there is a lot of actually some of this stuff built into the curriculum, right? And so at the beginning of the parent only portion, one of the things that we're always doing is we're encouraging our women to share, okay, do you have any wow moments from, the previous week? Was anyone able to utilize these skills? And it kind of becomes like this healthy, like,
Hmm.
sharing, right? Where they're like, oh yeah, or they'll hear from their colleague and they're like, oh, that's so crazy. They're hearing about each other's kids and the crazy things that they're doing, and they're empowered to share those each week. So it comes with that consistency and routine of the group, knowing that every week Miss Wilisa and Miss Deborah are going to ask us about it.
That's
So
right.
I need to try and, build this into my routine, right? And what we actually found with some families, with the first cycle that we did it, there was actually a week off that we took because it was the holidays. And so one of our moms came back and shared with us that when she had the week off, her kid was so confused. And they were like, what's happening? Why aren't we sitting at the table with the video and watching what's happening, right? And so they're like, I had to keep doing it, and they wouldn't let up, right? So I had to do our normal celebrating families time, even though we didn't have session that week. So a lot of this stuff kind of happens naturally with the consistency and the routine of the group happening.
Yeah, so great. I love it. I love how much I can feel your nurturing and care for Melissa, where you were just describing knowing the women, Deborah just got this big smile on her face. It's so lovely to see. And you bring up what we see a lot in celebrating families is that if nothing else, the kids love it. And so the parents are being dragged by the kids to attend. And that consistency that when you don't, when they know they're going to be asked about it, it may not be the first week, it may not be the second week, but eventually they're going to come and share. And we've had sites doing all kinds of things. It could be that we're asking them to have a family dinner during the week and they take a selfie of themselves having a family dinner. We have sites who are giving gift cards to grocery stores along with a recipe so they can cook a family meal together. There's just all kinds of creative ways throughout the country people are doing this to try to get that engagement, not only during group, but throughout the week, because we are depending in a kind of unique way on parents to really help keep instilling those skills and building those skills for themselves along with their children. Also, if you offer, if you're a residential facility and you offer parenting classes or one-on-one case management or peer support throughout the week, opportunities for those folks to be saying, hey, how about your wow moments? Or, hey, how many times have you sung Itsy Bitsy Spider this, week, or whatever it might be to help everyone on your treatment team, whatever that might look like, to kind of scaffold around that parent to be able to help them to be successful. I'm curious about, because you said you have some people in residence, some people aren't, some people are in outpatient. How are you finding people and their ability to be able to participate in that 1 hour parenting you know, do they have childcare available? Are the kiddos crawling around and they're just still able to protect? What's that looking like?
I'll answer the best I can, and then if I Lisa or Deborah. So, and you mentioned this, Melissa, just a second ago. We have individual parenting relationships with all of these clients, so they get that separate from Celebrating Families. So we already are knowing what their situation and what their needs are. And for folks who do not have access to our childcare because they're not on site, there will be pre-planning with them to look in their environment, who's available. If there's not someone, we figure out how to make it work with baby or child present until it's not okay, and then they might be excused for part of that time. Mm-hmm. So we try to make it very individually set up based on what the family needs, because what you said really resonates with me. Some is better than nothing.
Yeah. That's, you know, when we talked through it as our development team of like, it's really a parent-child program. So we need that parenting piece to get the Celebrating Families, and we do. But what, you know, getting what we can to who we can. But again, you talk about that preparation, and that's what's so important. How do we, because part of your work with people is already likely to be setting up natural supports. We know that's more difficult now with the pandemic. But if they have no one, how can we help them to find someone, someone that can safely come, and even if it's in the home, be with their child while they participate in group and they give that time to themselves to be able to
a slightly different thing. And I saw a question in the chat box. If we have a family who's separated from their infant and toddler and they're highly traumatized by that, we may be able to work with them individually with those family time things that they can do during visits, but we may encourage them to join the parenting portion in our 4 to 18-year-old group so they can get the curriculum and then work individually with their parenting specialist to do the family time activities.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Eileen. So I would say, I said yes, and it's the importance of the intake process is to, again, you're talking about what the program is going to be. And so for parents, especially that don't have their children in their custody, whether that's virtual or in person, that they're not able to attend group, it's saying, here's how the program's set up. If that feels like it would be too difficult for you or too triggering for you, you know, maybe you'll come to 4 to 17, maybe you'll wait till next cycle, maybe you'll do it individually one-on-one with your parenting specialist, just going through the curriculum. We don't want to re-traumatize. We are certainly a trauma-informed program, but we also don't want people to feel like they have to have their children with them in order to participate. And so I would say every cycle I've ever run has some kind of combination of people who have their children, people who have supervised visits, and people who don't know if they'll ever see their child again, but who have a desire to build their parenting skills as part of their recovery. And so I feel like at the end of the day, what we want to honor and exalt the parent. They're coming to us from systems that have made them feel torn down, and even their own internal inner voice tearing them down, feeling like they're not worthy. And so however we can say, we can provide the space for you to feel worthy, oftentimes that's enough. They'll go sit with another mom and practice the Itsy Bitsy Spider song because of the nature of our program and what they trust the intention of that nurturing that we give. But yes, Eileen, it's also allowing them to decide when they might want to tap out because it's too hard to watch the other mamas and babies playing together. Any other questions pop in the chat? Any other things that you'd want sites to know about specifically implementing 0 to 3?
I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that we found an outcome that was really surprising to us using the virtual model. And that was the deep connection between moms and their children during the Connecting with My Family portion seemed to be enhanced when they were in their own home on the video versus in a group with other moms, because what we found was in person and group with other moms, they're chatting with the other moms and getting distracted, or the other caregivers. And when they were one-on-one in their apartments, we saw such a deeper connection. It was quite striking to us.
That's really powerful. So what a beautiful gift to give the opportunity for that deeper connection. Because I certainly have found that as a mom, we're not as busy, right? We're just home more together. And so to have people supporting me as a mom, or you and to say, gosh, look at this special time you're getting with your baby. And I love that there's less distraction. They're in their own environment. That's a beautiful outcome. Yeah, there's so much silver lining in this for our program. I mean, we've been working our butts off because it's like, this was a program where you had 50 or 60 people in a room. Like the masking was not, but what are the learnings that we're finding as we're doing it virtually? Other people being able to attend that wouldn't otherwise be able to. Opportunity to nurture our families in a different way, needing less staff to be able to run it. So we have sites that actually can just begin implementation, because right now they just don't need as many people to run group, those kinds of things to get your feet wet. Because I'm sure, as we've seen here, since they've been doing it since 2012, once you get going, not only do the families keep coming back, but facilitators keep coming back, because it is such a rewarding program, not only for the families to go through, but for us as facilitators as well. Well, I want to thank Deborah or Lisa. Any final thoughts from you?
I think just some things that we have found when doing virtual is that YouTube is our best friend, and that just about every song and video, Itsy Bitsy Spider, everything, there's a YouTube version of it, which is, a lot. Like, obviously we can be animated and we can sing and we can do all of these things, but the kids sometimes appreciate the cartoon YouTubes just a little bit more than us.
Totally. And it's a different opportunity than the videos that we would typically have in training, right? Because we have lots of videos as part of our curriculum, but we weren't before, we wouldn't have thought to like put the TV on and draw up YouTube necessarily. And so, yeah, I love that. Really, even in training, right? Like you can look up just about any we didn't make up the essential skills for parenting. They're based on child development research. And so you can find videos about those things too. If you're like, I'm not sure quite how to describe sports casting. Well, first of all, you can just show them Deborah's video because she did. But there's all kinds of fun opportunities to bring those things in. Any final thoughts from you, Deborah?
I'll just like to add that in working with the Celebrating Families, and I've been doing it since 2012, and working in the 0 to 3 group, I've found that the families that I work with have gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of know-how of how to engage with their children. And they just picked up on a lot of skills that maybe they were otherwise would not have been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. So I have a lot of faith in the Celebrating Families.
You're a believer. Yeah. Yes. Keep coming back. It works. Well, yes. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your knowledge and your passion and your just all your experience. I'm looking over at the chat, and yes, parents can bring a song if they want to. Parents could lead the centering. A child could pick their favorite book. There's so much flexibility. We say this, that the structure should remain consistent. Every week tells you what the essential skills and what the main concept should be, the most important activities, but there's absolute flexibility in the other pieces to make it personalized from the group. And so, yeah, and Rosemary just put to our panelists, together we can do what we could never do alone. And it's so true. So thank you all for being with us. Again, this will be recorded and available on preventionpartnershipinternational.us. And an email will go out to all of you with the implementation guide that we spoke about. Again, that will be up on our website. And please fill out the survey that will pop up on your browser once we close today to let us know if there's anything more you need to feel like you can successfully implement the 0 to 3 program. Thanks so much, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you have a great weekend and take good care. Don't forget about that self-care. Bye-bye, everyone.